Good morning. What I'd like to talk about, which is going to pick up on some of the questions that we've just been listening to, is about aviation and taking responsibility for aviation emissions. This coincides with a report from the IIED that's come out today. What we're trying to look at is what are the solutions, what are the balances that we need to strike. To begin by looking at the overall challenge that we have, aviation is obviously very important to us, it's important to the industry because it helps to drive a large part of it. The difficulty is that emissions are a significant source of emissions, and they're rising very quickly at the moment. Just to put this into perspective from a UK point of view, and to come back to what the gentleman was saying at the front here, in 1954, 4 million people went through our airports. When we got to 2006, that was 235 million. The projections for this are anywhere up to 500 million by 2030. It's this rise and how we manage this rise that's important. There is an environmental cost, but the flip side to this is that there are enormous economic and social benefits that come from aviation. Anywhere up to 8% of world GDP is estimated to be supported by aviation, and in less developed countries, up to 70% of their export services from tourism can rely on aviation. Technology, which we're hearing quite a lot about, has delivered a lot for us over the last 40 years, 70% of efficiency. But the problem is that the efficiency has always been behind the actual increase in passenger numbers. So the sheer increase of passengers will not be outweighed by the technology advantages. If we look at how aviation emissions are increasing relative to how other areas are decreasing, a lot of you will be familiar with the idea that all of the targets, which we heard a little more about earlier, are based upon us making reductions on our 1990 levels of emissions. In the UK, what that means is that from 1990 to now, we've actually reduced our emissions by 33 million tonnes. On the aviation side, we've actually increased the fuel going out of international bunkers here by more than 15 million tonnes of emissions equivalent. One of the big issues is how to quantify the emissions. Physically, how many are there and what is the damage that they're doing? There are variances about what people say are the impact of aviation emissions, and here we've got 1.6 to 5%, that depends on how you actually try and assess it. We find that carbon calculators, for example, vary enormously whether they come from an airline or from a carbon company. And what we're really needing to be able to move forward and to quantify the impact is actually measurement tools and data which will enable us to create that measurement. Without people being confident in the emissions values that they're being given, it produces a barrier to action because people are unsure, and particularly where, for example, an offset calculator is used, that has a purchasing and sale mechanic underneath it, which quite a lot of people then question the integrity of the data they're receiving. So, emissions reduction, we hear a lot about who's responsible for it. In essence, we're all responsible for it. We currently, for example, label all of our white goods in the UK and in the EU according to efficiency. We also check every car in this country for the amount of emissions that come out of it. We don't do so with planes. To be able to move this forward, I feel that what we need is some degree of emissions labelling which will start to promote an education process and will also deliver a degree of education and action. The current aviation debate is extremely polarised, and one of the problems with that polarisation is it's been very difficult for people to understand what is the best action to take. Everybody is waiting for somebody to take a lead. In the end, we will all have to take a lead in our own ways. So what can the aviation industry do? Clearly, fuel consumption reporting is critical to be able to deliver data information. Using tugs for taxiing in and out of major airports is something some airlines have already begun doing, and using single engines for taxiing. The effect of that can be up to 9% on a short-haul flight. If we're going to reduce aviation emissions, it's not just going to be about the government or about the airlines. Consumers can play their part if they get relevant eco-labelling that they can trust. Choice and behavioural change are one of the key drivers to emissions reduction globally. Finally, I'd like to say that this is not about winners and losers. The polarised debate about emissions in travel is all about pro and anti, and it's extremely polarised. We will all lose if we do nothing about this. And business as usual is already, as we've seen from Sean, affecting some of those destinations around the world that the industry already profits from. Thank you very much.